and hopefully Mindy will join us. So official call to order. I guess I need to read the statement here. The
Correct.
Community Engagement and Collaboration Subcommittee meeting has now commenced. It is April 16th at 1 p.m. We ask all commissioners and guests to mute yourselves until called upon to speak to avoid feedback and background noise. For those who have dialed in using the call-in number to unmute and speak, dial *6 on your phone. Also, prior to speaking, please announce who you are to identify yourself. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. We ask that you only use the chat function to request to speak or to announce that you're leaving the meeting so that we can track quorum. Also, to comply with the state open meeting law, attendance and votes will be done by way of roll call using audio, not by using the chat function. So with that, let's do our roll call. So Robert Ojeda,
Here.
Michael Edmonds,
Here.
Kenny Wong,
I am here.
Ann Miskey here, and Mindy Bernstein
Not in yet.
not present. Hopefully she'll come. All right, well, this is our inaugural meeting, everybody. It's great to see all of you. Um, and I think did everybody receive the agenda as well as the attachment that was sent? So what I thought we would do is, just let me double check, Neto, oh, do we have an HCD update? Sorry, it was on the agenda.
That's right. Very, very brief. Um, by the way, Roberto, Kenny, and Mike, I'll be the liaison staff person to the new committee. Michael, if you have any objections, take it up with Ann Chineka. Um, yes. So tomorrow, Friday, uh, HCD and El Pueblo Housing Development will have its groundbreaking ceremony at the Amazon Flats on Miracle Mile. That's the second part of the project. The first part was the opening of, or the remodeling of Amazon Motel into a supportive housing uh, development. And the second part is 59 single room units that will be built on site in the new building. At the beginning of the month, HCD submitted its LIHTC requests for the project, the affordable housing project in Barrio Anita and the Presidio. And separately, Gorman and Company submitted its LIHTC request for the Stone and Speedway uh, development project. And so keep your fingers crossed. June 1 is the expected date of announcements. And we have some hiring going on at HCD. Just to let you know that we are hiring. We have been hiring a few people, although you may have read or heard in the news that HCD is under a hiring freeze, a proposed hiring freeze for the new city budget, which has yet to be approved. But we're getting a few hires in before that freeze comes on.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. Okay, with that, let's move to the priority setting. If you have the attachment that was sent, this was based on notes from our last meeting. So these were all different ideas that had been put forward as to the focus of this committee. So I thought what we could do today is just have a discussion and determine what we feel we are able to take on. There's obviously a lot here. I think more than a committee of 5 or 6 can handle, but really deciding what are our priorities and sort of next steps. So if there's anything I missed, I just wanted to first ask the committee if there was anything they recall from our last conversation that may have been missed off of here. Nothing? Okay, great. Um, so I broke it down, as you'll see, into 5 or 4 different areas that we could possibly jump into. Um, Also, we had talked about aligning with the other committee. which I think is a great idea to support each other. So hopefully we'll get the minutes from that meeting as well and be able to determine. But I just really wanted to open it up kind of to a general discussion right now about how people are feeling about these four different areas that we had discussed, whether we feel it's still we're on the right track for this committee, and any thoughts or suggestions about areas that you would like us to see for our focus going forward. So just let me open it up to the floor and get your thoughts and comments.
And just for clarity,
Hmm.
can we just revisit sort of what we mean by advocacy in the context of what we want to do? Just I know there are, housing investment and tracking national and state policy trends. I think I recall you said something that resonated with me that was bringing innovation to the council, to the city. Is that kind of the crux of it?
I think hi Mindy, we've got Mindy just joining us.
Sorry,
Um,
apologies, I'm late.
no problem. We just are getting started, so good timing. I think in the advocacy, the focus was more around, again, not necessarily lobbying. Certainly in our role as commissioners, didn't necessarily feel that lobbying would be appropriate. But the two areas really that came up were the idea of as an advisory committee, ensuring that we were on top of what was going on around housing, both national and state policy trends. There's a lot happening in these areas and a lot of fights happening nationally with what the federal government is doing in terms of funding. So this was more of a tracking and making sure our council was aware of what some of the things were going on at the state and national level, that we kept track of that and any discussions that might affect certainly how the city areas of focus, those kinds of things. So again, I did some research. There's lots happening because they're really turning the whole system on its head right now, the federal government. The other one was something that Mindy brought forward. Um, we know that one of the issues around affordable housing is what is happening with institutions buying up, especially rental properties. A lot of then, renovating apartments in order to charge high levels of rent, kicking out residents, moving away from affordable rentals to high-end rentals. And cities across the country trying to limit that. I did research on this as well. There is no city that has been able to stop selling to institutional buyers. It's considered illegal to do that, but there are cities that have brought in certain measures that limit the ability or provide priority to individual homeowners or smaller landlords, not the big banks, hedge funds, and big institutional buyers. So there are a number of areas around that, and that feels like it could be a direction that the city of Tucson could look at how to limit what's happening. One of the things I read that was really interesting is that Phoenix is one of the worst cities in the country for this. And Tucson hasn't been hit as much by this, but it's starting to happen more in Tucson. So we're starting to see more of these institutional buyers coming in and buying up rental properties. So that would be more of a direct advocacy type role where we could, as a commission, really advise council about what other cities are doing around this to limit this, to make sure that individuals and small landlords have the sort of first right of refusal, if you will. So that was different than the innovation, although there's obviously some crossover there, if that makes sense. The innovation was more around best practices around housing, homelessness development that are happening statewide or nationally, that we again could collect information and share that, potentially bring in people to speak at the commission, opportunities to connect with groups that are doing some really innovative things. So long explanation, but does that kind of clarify the conversation? Mindy, are you comfortable with that from based on our last conversation? Because you're the one that brought forward kind of that institutional buyer. Having trouble unmute.
I would be happy to have that as part of this conversation with this group. I think one of the other pieces so for me is that these are the bigger picture is that the federal government has defunded indigent care across the nation. States then also have defunded indigent care, and those are our most vulnerable adults that are now homeless. People with serious mental illnesses and substance use disorders who have no treatment options or housing options. Um, so within that context, like if I'm getting riled up, I feel it. It's like it feels like it's band-aiding, like we're trying to come up with solutions when the bigger issue is systemic. And how do we, in any way, uh, penetrate that?
Mhm.
Would
Yeah.
be interesting to me. Besides a lawsuit.
Yeah. Which is happening right now quite a bit.
Is
Um,
it?
nationally. Yeah, all sorts of lawsuits happening nationally. Yeah. National Alliance to End Housing, the Low Income Housing Coalition. There's a number of the legal, I'm trying to remember the name of the legal organization that works on tenant. We didn't talk about tenant protections in here. I know that's come up in our broader committee as well. Robert, was that long explanation of mine, did that make sense?
Yeah, and the reason I asked Dan is because it seems to me that innovation and emerging approaches and priority populations, there's at least the innovation piece and the advocacy piece feel to me like they could be just one
Hmm.
because we're bringing best practices, we're sharing those with council, and I think an awareness around priority populations is part of that public education. It's part of that and also for the council. So I don't know if we need four. We could probably integrate into two in the spirit of like bandwidth and what's reasonable for us.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that four is too many. I just tried to kind of break it down based on our previous
Yeah.
conversation, but I agree there's a lot of sort of interweaving and duplication here. Any other thoughts from Michael or Kenny? Any thoughts on what you see or feel is a good direction for us?
Not at the moment. I mean, what jumps out to me when I look at the agenda, if you will, the discussion agenda, because of who I am and where my interests are and everything like that. I mean, I'm focused on the public education and narrative piece because for me, my experience, there's so much misinformation, misunderstanding, and these very long conversations that really need to be had before I strongly feel that some people can communicate with us or their elected leaders or whatever reasonably about an issue or a topic. Advocacy, I mean, that's something it feels like it's an entire commission
Hmm.
uh issue thing. So I'd like to my mind is putting that to the rear, the advocacy, because I guess for me, I'm just thinking the entire commission is going to be doing the advocacy. Priority populations, I think we could identify that in regards to information gathering and sharing and compiling. Uh,
Hmm.
if what I said makes some sense to you, I'm just, I'm more thinking about information and communication.
Great. Thank you.
Uh,
Kenny.
yeah, I like that combination as well. I think I don't know if in the spirit of collaboration, it is education. I wonder if it sounds a little bit funny, if we're like educating others, and so even just public narrative to me makes a lot of sense. And I've still to parse through it, but I did see the Home is Where It All Starts campaign come out. I think that's much more of a Maricopa Association of Governments and like Phoenix area initiative. But it looks promising, this idea that we need to shape the narrative around like what housing stability within our communities means. And so I was excited to see that come out and want to dive into that a bit. And that gets at the discussions we need to be having, the myths and misinformation, and equipping people too to be able to see, let's say, their role within housing availability, accessibility, attainability. If we want to be in vibrant places, it's a whole swath of our community that needs to be in place. So I like the idea of combining those two, and yeah, maybe just some of the terminology, the advocacy piece too. I mean, I maybe it introduces more confusion than what we're hoping for. So for me, it's totally fine to take it out. I think there's still the same issues, but we don't have to kind of dip our toes into that too far.
Yeah. One of the things my head is going to at this moment, because I've been very involved in this piece, communication, myth busting, that kind of thing. We called it changing the narrative. Because I agree with you, trying to educate people sounds rather pretentious or something. Um, but changing the narrative on homelessness, and what I'm wondering, and this just popped into my head as we're talking, is to almost create a communications plan. And we have some expert communicators on here that could touch on a few of these different things, right? So almost parse it out, like there's the population piece, there is the innovation piece. There are other things that could be sort of interwoven into this. How do we change the narrative around homelessness? One of the biggest issues to me is that it is a systems problem, not a person problem. The victims are the human beings, but what we have done in society, and certainly what the feds are doing right now, is flipping that narrative to say it's a human problem. It's the people that are the problem, and if we fix the people, we'll fix the issue. And we know that's actually not true. We have to fix the system so that people aren't victimized. And so you know, I don't know. I like personally, and I don't want to throw my own thoughts here. I like the idea of taking it on as this communication narrative piece, and then kind of looking at what are some of the different topics we could introduce in there that touch on some of these other things that we've brought up. So it's more of an informing people, bringing in other people from other communities or whatever who could talk about what they've done around. So it's not just the problem, but it's also what are some of the solutions. Does that make sense to people? I don't know what people feel about like taking it that direction. Yeah, Mindy.
I kind of love it.
Oh, that's great.
I what popped up in my head was changing the narrative. How does that happen? The possibility of the city funding, like poster information, like at bus stops, they have advertisements for whatever, changing the narrative of homelessness is not somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's uncle, somebody that was yours. Like, so putting out like public, anyway, my brain just started clicking on how that could be done in all KXCI, PSAs, public radio. Do we still have a public channel here in Tucson?
AZPM, yeah, they're the organization.
Just yeah, it doesn't have to be us going and talking to people. It could be something that the city funds. And but that's anyway, that because that is changing the narrative. It's about educating in a because okay, I'll be quiet. That's it. I'll
No, I appreciate that. And I think bringing media into it, I know that when I was still in Pasadena, the city of Pasadena did exactly what you're talking about, Mindy. They did a whole PR campaign. They did bus shelters, they did the whole thing. But what was really great is the media had us do a bi-weekly column on housing and homelessness. And it was all about myth busting. And we had a whole bunch of different articles. You know, one of them was, should I give to people, should I give to panhandlers? Should I give to people who ask me for money? You know, things that people are really interested in and want to find out more information on. Is everybody a drug addict? Yeah. Any other thoughts on this direction? Do people feel like this could be a way to go? Yeah. So if we were to think about doing a communications plan, um, over the next, say, 12 months that focused on some specific different topics. Again, some of the things that we've talked here, population groups, um, housing. This is again where we could connect with the other committee about what some of their areas of focus on and maybe do a series of some kind. We could connect with media. You know, could we do a media series, for example, on different topics? And we've got, again, Michael, I'm looking at you. I know you, and we've got some good communication people here. Michael, you were going to say something.
Well, yeah, I was. And now she called my name. It may have gone. Oh, I know what it was. I would like to try to, if at all possible, align it with, let's say, HCD in general, because they have things that they focus on, and events and projects and things like that. So if it could be helpful to HCD, maybe.
Mhm.
I'm not opposed to what you're talking about, the 12-month plan and stuff like that. But also, I just want to keep it a little loose or a little open for the possibility of, hey, they need a little help. Can we help them out?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. Yeah, yeah. Because I think the more we can promote the work that the city's doing, and they're doing some really great things, I think that's absolutely helpful. And I know they've asked us to be at events. It turns out every single event I have something else on. I feel badly, but I think there are ways that we can amplify the work of the city and then also fill in some gaps of things that maybe they're not doing or that they're not getting out there just because of resources or because of their strategy. Yeah, Robert.
Yeah. One thing that I think from my perspective would be pretty cool to include is the idea that in addition to the issue of being unhoused, that there's something about being rooted in community.
Mm,
And I think it's a celebration of what people are doing in their communities that I think to me would be a good balance between that and innovation that comes from other places as well. I don't know. I think that would be something that I would appreciate including.
I love that. Something more positive.
That too.
Yeah. The need for community, the importance of community. Um, yeah. Anybody else have some thoughts?
I know I said HCD, but I just want to see if Neto wants to get in on this. I'm also thinking Neto, TPCH, anything aligned, associated or aligned with HC, could this committee do something that would be relatable to TPCH, or and I'm trying to think of some other,
Yeah.
cashew or something.
Um, I'm not. To be honest, I'm not sure. I mean, I would suspect yes, but specifically, I'm not sure how that would work. So let's just take HCD as you were talking a moment ago, and company. Um, yes, we have a communications effort, right? With social media, we do issue press releases. Um, where I think this committee can come in, and as well as the larger commission, um, is to uh, as Ann mentioned, amplify our work through your own networks, right? Through your friendships, through your personal, social, or professional social networks. Um, and as such, you can also be individual advocates, right? I'll get a clarification from Anjaneka, but I believe you as commissioners can publicly state your position, your personal position, um, and not representing the commission, but your personal position on XYZ, right? As for TPCH, which is the Tucson Pima collaboration to end homelessness, that's a funky group because it's our division, our planning division. We have support staff that supports TPCH. TPCH, however, is made up of a variety of community organizations and also the county. So, how does the committee work with that group? Not quite sure. Maybe you can invite Kat Davis one day for a meeting and get an overview of what TPCH is currently doing and what's facing and where you can fit in with that group. And as for Cashew, that's the Community Safety, Health, and Wellness. It's an outreach group that the city has been working with. It's a city function. They go out into the community in the homeless camps. So again, I think primarily it's amplifying what we do, attending our functions when you can, and waving the flag of need for housing and need for services for homeless individuals. That's just initial thoughts.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I wonder if one of the things we could do is the amplify, I think is really important. And I agree. I think maybe, sitting down and have a meeting with Anne or whatever, just to kind of get a sense, a stronger sense. I mean, I know we get the updates at the committee meetings, but
Yeah.
really just in terms, and also a calendar of events and kind of where we can do that. But I also think there's some gap areas. And again, HCD and all these, they have their lots of other things on the go. Is there a way that we can come into some gap areas that really, again, continue to support the work they're doing? And I'm thinking again around some of the narrative. We know housing, we need more housing, that's pretty clear. But there's such strong misperceptions out there about why people are homeless, what's going to help to end homelessness for people. Do you force people? Do you, all of those kinds of things? And it feels like that might be an area where we could play a role. I know some agencies try to do that, but they're also pretty stretched to the max with just doing their day-to-day work. So I don't know what people feel about that. Again, it's more about changing, educating people about the true causes and the true solutions. Any thoughts? I could just keep talking. Kenny.
No, you're full of good ideas, and just it really helps push us forward. Yeah, I agree with that. There's probably some space to move around things. I'm both encouraged, but also very aware too. I had the chance to join one of the Safe City Initiative workshops. That's an initiative kind of coming from a lot of agencies working together. Uh, it's great to see really intentional communication and workshopping around that. And at the same time, I'm aware of the conversation around I think the last Prop 414 about safety and housing kind of being brought together. And of course, they are related. But sometimes I wonder if we cause ourselves trouble in really addressing housing when they so easily slip into one another. And, they're obviously very real concerns people have within their neighborhoods and communities and, public spaces. I think that is very real. And at the same time, sometimes it almost it pits us as a community against each other in really entrenched ways. So I think that's some of that space I'm kind of sensing. Is there another way that this group can engage with that, or might have ideas to, be a little more direct about housing and its role, and what we see versus what might be the causes for things.
Mhm. And as you're talking, Kenny, I'm going back to I think Robert, it was you who talked about community. And as soon as we talk safety, I know kind of what you're saying. It does pit communities against each other. And I'm wondering if there are ways we can reframe around the idea of community. Um, and this is a really unformed thought, but it feels like what creates safety is a strong sense of community, communities that are healthy in all ways, right? You see increased safety because people feel connected to one another. They feel like there are resources, all of those things. Housing is an essential piece of that, but it's beyond that. So, again, I don't know where I'm necessarily going with this, but I think that's a much more positive kind of message than focusing on just safety.
The other thing that I was thinking, oh, Mindy, were you going to jump in?
Well, Robert, why don't you go ahead, then we'll
Okay.
have.
I was just, and this maybe is a question for maybe those of you who've been around for a while, but I'm wondering, as we think about advocacy and awareness, if we can encourage city and county collaboration around some of these things. It sounds so. I don't know. I don't know how that is working out and how much of a cohesion there is around, how to do this and what are some opportunities for us to try to create a bridge between them. So I don't know.
Mhm. Thanks.
I'll jump in on that one. Just Mindy, go ahead, Mindy.
Neto, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to mention, so there was an effort there to have a joint city and county meeting with the commissions. Um, that didn't happen, but again, there's that possibility of just scheduling a meeting in one meeting a year or two meetings a year. But also remember that most of the commission meetings, the full commission meetings, there is a representative from the county, Sophia Blue or someone else. Keep that in mind. You might want at the next commission meeting, if Sophia or someone else from the county is present, to begin the discussion at that point. Just an idea. But again, the county does present at the full commission meetings. And that's something you can push the full commission. Let's have a joint meeting to start exactly what the dialogue that Roberto's suggesting.
Mindy.
In the commission, we have brought up in my subcommittee, the Housing First. We brought in a speaker to talk about sanctioned campgrounds, which Rachel Milne was the director of in Phoenix. They had a downtown location with space for 300 tents. And there's also a company called the Pallet Company, the Pallet. So they only sell their micro pallet homes to agencies or groups or people that are going to do an intentional wraparound service village for the homeless. And they're working beautifully. Personally, I think a little tiny micro home is much preferable than a tent. However, the numbers of homeless individuals that I've spoken to would gladly go to a sanctioned campground. And that is something that the city can pay for and or work with the county. But there has to, I know there's Star Village that Primavera's doing that's like a model, a real, a pilot. That we've got to get people off the street and into recovery services and back on their feet so they can go back to work and pay taxes. And it's a big, it's just, that's it. That's what I wanted to say. I would love to see that happen.
I ran a number of pallet homes. I actually brought them into Los Angeles. And they work really, really well. The problem isn't the pallet homes, which are really reasonably priced. It's all of the other things that you need around them. Plumbing, electricity, security, services. So they ended up not being cheap, but they did work really well. And what we found is that people who would not go into shelters because they want their own space, even if it's an 8 by 8 little, it's kind of like a tool shed, but it's got air conditioning and heating, was much preferable. So, um, Neto, you were talking about the city and county, and one of the things that a few months ago, I don't know, maybe 6, 8 months ago, Primavera Foundation hosted, if some of you may have been there, an event where they brought in a lot of service providers around housing and homelessness. And it was just 2 or 3 hours, but you could tell there was a real interest and desire for people to start working together, especially with all the funding cuts, with all of the stress that's on the system right now. And a few years ago, and I apologize for using Los Angeles as an example, it's just because that's where I was working. The city and the county came together and had a 2 day conference. And it was innovation, communications, all of those things. And it was so well received. We had service providers, government officials, funders, people with lived experience, and it was incredibly helpful because there was a sense of we've got to work together and support one another. Just an idea that I think would be really interesting to see if we could, and then maybe bring in some innovation, some interesting speakers. I just throw that out there. I don't know if the city or county would want to do that or pay for it, but I just remember how excited service providers were to be in that kind of environment. A really well run, I think it was a 2 day conference. So I just throw that out there. Anybody want to sponsor it? Sorry, you had something to say.
Oh, I'm going to email the group a brief text. The city council recently, um, you recall, made a declaration, an emergency declaration on housing and homelessness. And in the wake of the Star Village, the city is moving toward changing some of its zoning policies and other policies to allow more of this kind of encampments that Mindy was talking about. So keep that in mind, and I'll send you, there'll be a video attached to this email of the discussion at last week's council meeting. So slowly, the city is moving toward giving space for these encampments. As for the city with city funding, well, that's a whole different question, right? That's
This
that's
could be a good way to approach some foundations.
yeah, yeah, and also again, advocating, talking to the public.
Right.
Yeah, I don't need to tell you how tough this sell is. Um, and so anyway, I'm just going to send that off in a moment to you.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Any other thoughts, folks? We need to, I mean, there's lots of really great ideas. I think the thing we need to do is decide what is the scope of what we can do as a committee, and then what are, say, 3 priorities that we want to take on for the next few months. I mean, it doesn't have to be three, but um, again, great ideas, but we're a small but mighty group. We can only handle so much. So I just would like to maybe get a sense from people, what do they think is like one thing they would really like us to do over the next few months, and then we'll go from there. Again, we've had some really great ideas. The possibilities are endless.
At the risk of making a suggestion which involves too much labor and time that's not available from members of the commission just in general. Because this is what popped in my head during our conversation today. And some people might hate this, but as an advocate, from an advocacy standpoint, I'm hoping we can help, if you will, the chair, the vice chair, and a sidekick or body guy or somebody to go with them and comment or correct or amplify good things uh, in regards to housing. So I'm thinking like if there's a situation where Ann as director doesn't need to speak, or deputy director doesn't need to speak, or Neto as public information officer, you don't need to, correct information or give out information. Is there a way that we as commission members can assist with a topic or subject? And one of the first things, and I was trying to pull a thought together, an example together here while we were talking. Like in the past week, I think Star Village came up on my radar a couple of times this week.
Mhm.
And my first thought was the ward it's in, which is Ward 3. So I sent all my thoughts and ideas and notes over there first. But I'm just saying, like, you know what? We're halfway through, I guess, the pilot. Um, I don't detect any negativity. A lot what I've seen in the public so far has been positive towards it. So is there something that the commission might be interested in doing that's reasonable to move that conversation forward, even in a more positive um direction, help the general public understand uh, what's being attempted and how good it is, etc. That kind of thing.
Yeah, something that's working. So let's figure out how to do more and even better, right? Yeah, I love that. So are you thinking, Michael, of maybe having a commissioner who could go to a city council meeting and do a presentation on something like this to city council or?
Not so much city council in that. I mean, we can. I was thinking along the lines of uh, helping through general media type channels, whether it be social media or print or radio, even TV. And I know there's some danger in this because you don't. I know there will be some persons who try to spin some things or so they can do some gotchas.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I mean, we have some information, we have some proof here uh, that I'd like for the general public to be aware of so they can go, oh, I'll be darned. I guess it really does work. That kind of thing.
You know what would be really interesting is to see, and it's still pretty early, it may be too early, but to find out what are some of the outcomes. So for example, are people getting housed permanently from Star Village? Are we moving on? Has there been a reduction in crime rates around the area as a result? I mean, those kinds of things. One of the things that I found really useful when trying to present these things is the messenger is as important as the message. And if you can get people who aren't don't have a vested interest, if you will, when I've done this in the past, for example, bringing on the chief of police to talk about how great it is often weighed more with the general public than having me, nonprofit homelessness housing person say it. So just a thought to build some coalitions with other parts of the community, not just HCD, which again, vested interest, but do we build partnerships with some people that the community is going to listen to? You know, anyway, just a thought. But I like that. I like the idea of taking something like that. And also U of A is doing some really good research work. So there may be an opportunity to connect with U of A around some of the outcomes in research. Any other thoughts, folks?
I have a
Yes,
I have
Robert.
a thought, and then I have to run. But I remember Jay and was talking about just, emphasizing some learning for the commission. Um, and so I think that could overlap with the full commission. I was thinking it would be really cool to continue to learn about the context by looking at these vulnerable or priority populations. I don't think we know enough. And so maybe there's a way we could spend a few months just really doing that. And at the same time, in the spirit of like hope and excitement, maybe look at innovation beyond our community and also overlay that. And so maybe have some learning around that too. So maybe the first few months are really about learning about our context, about the populations impacted, and then some innovative ideas. I don't know, something like that perhaps would be helpful.
I love that. So, to that point, which I think is a great one, we've talked about Star Village, we've talked about some of the populations. What does the committee feel about taking the next few months and focusing on 2 or 3 areas where it is a learning opportunity for us? And then at that point, figuring out then how do we amplify and leverage the good stuff that we're learning about to the committee, to council, to the broader community. And we could pick, say, again, a few different topics. One topic I would like to propose, because I've actually been talking to some agencies around town, um, is women experiencing homelessness and domestic violence. And yet you've got two sectors who are completely separate from each other, the domestic violence sector and the homeless sector, and you have women falling between the cracks. I shouldn't say it's not just women, but it's the majority women. Um, that is one area that I think has not been, I've been asking around and it's not really been addressed in Tucson. I think a lot is being done around youth homelessness, but a lot more could be done around youth homelessness. Obviously, foster care and youth is a direct pipeline into adult homelessness. So it would be really interesting. I would be interested in finding out more about what's going on in Tucson, where there's some gap areas, and then maybe proceed from there. Just a thought. I don't want to push people. I really want the committee to feel comfortable about it. These are just some things I'm thinking as I'm hearing people. Do people feel comfortable with the idea of maybe taking a 3-month learning journey and then at that point decide where we want to put our focus? I'm getting nodding heads.
Yeah, and I think Mindy's got her hand.
I do.
Oh, sorry, Mindy. Go ahead.
Um, I don't, I know, are you familiar with the Homing Project? They are a group of volunteers that have so there's a land trust lease. They have purchased 10 pallet homes and they don't have the money for any operating overhead enough.
Mhm.
Like I'm trying to get them to partner with the city, possibly, but they and they are specifically targeting women with histories of domestic violence. So,
Great.
um, I'm I'm just because I'm a little uncomfortable with 3 months of education because I think because I think I've been educated. I think that we have that information here in this group that uh, if the rest of you, if the majority of other people want presenters and educate, I'm comfortable with it. I just want to get to work and get things done. So
I hear you. I think for me, it's more a sense not of education on the topic. I know quite a bit about homelessness and housing. It's more understanding kind of the state of affairs in Tucson, what's being done, what's not being done, um, as opposed to the issue itself, if that makes sense. And part of that is me because I'm relatively new, so that may not be fair to the rest of you. Um, but it's kind of like, say, if we want to look at, and again, I'll use the domestic violence one just because that's something I've been discussing to really understand, okay, what are the players, who's doing what are the gaps, and then say, okay, what can we do? And maybe it's just bringing people together to say it would be great if we could have a forum where people came together and discussed. Sorry. But I hear you too. Learning can go on forever. I know that. There's so, as I said earlier, there's so many possibilities that we have to somehow hone it down to where we think we want to put our energy. And I think communications it seems to be everybody agrees slash advocacy, communicating is advocacy, not lobbying advocacy. I just want to figure out kind of what are the areas we want to focus on. That's why I was thinking learning, again, not so much diving deep necessarily into the causes, but more learning where we can play a role. Go ahead, Mindy.
Thank you. So narrowing it down, I know I came late and my apologies. I really love the idea of changing the narrative and working with the city on getting some public information out to change that narrative. I think that is crucial. So I vote for that one.
Sounds good. Any other thoughts? How do people feel about that one?
I got to tell you from I'm always maybe a little bit too super sensitive about phrasing and terminology and words when I communicate. Is this because I'm looking for the thing that does not trigger somebody when I'm talking to them, and changing to me is like I'm trying to convince somebody rather than us having a discussion, so that maybe they have the opportunity to see things the way I see them. So changing the narratives to me, I'm a little concerned about those three words. I'm not completely opposed to it. It's just that I'm basing that off of conversations I have with people where, just that kind of phrasing would spin the conversation in a direction I'm not trying to go to. That's all.
Great.
But while I have a moment, I'm going to ask a favor of maybe Kenny and company, like Keith and them, over all y'all over to U of A, and then Neto, if you're back as well. If you all stumble across some thoughts and ideas and information and topics and articles, um, that we could use in the subcommittee as ideas, like, well, maybe we should be talking about this. And if when I say we, I mean, well, maybe the commission should be promoting this, and this is something good that we should make the community aware of, media aware of, or whatever. Maybe kick it our way. I think it'd be helpful.
Great. Thanks, Robert. I really appreciate you. We'll we'll get to something. Um, I don't know, and I want to be really super careful because I am not trying to promote myself here whatsoever, but I may have mentioned I did a whole podcast series. It's actually called Changing the Narrative, but now that you've said that, Michael, I'm like, oh, okay. Um, where we went through a whole variety of myths and misperceptions on homelessness. Um, and again, it was, focused for LA, although it was pretty much general stuff. It went national. It was a national podcast. If anybody's interested, more just because, again, I'm not trying to promote myself in any way, shape, or form, more just to give you some ideas about what are some of the topics. So we covered everything from why rent to somebody, um, who has a voucher to myths around mental illness and drug substance use and homelessness. And so I'm happy to send out some links if people are interested. because we went through this and we were I will say it was very successful. There was such a hunger out there. In the first year, we rose to the top 25 podcasts in the country. Again, because people are so interested in the issue of homelessness right now. It's such a national crisis. Um, so we won't. Yeah, sorry, Mindy, go ahead.
I'm not attached to calling it changing the narrative.
I'm not.
I think it's just about public education. Does that feel better, Michael? Okay.
I like the word myths. You know, myths is something simple, clearly neutral that people can understand. It's just that it's almost like daily. I have these sensitive conversations with people where I have to watch out for that one word or term or word that's gonna cause them to not want to continue the conversation. I mean, it happened again today with another constituent where I had to be on guard. My radar had to be on. I was watching for, you know, a landmine or something. That's all.
Yeah, no. I appreciate that, and we are living in a very sensitive time right now where people are. Um, so do people feel like communication, sort of whatever we want to call it, myth busting, as well as focusing on not just busting the myth, I would like to add the so then what? The solution focus, the community building focus, um, and putting together some kind of a, still have to figure out what we're going to do. It's great ideas.
Maybe we could craft some of the posters or and I know I'm just jumping in and talking. It's hard raising my hand all the time, but
Please just jump in because there's small enough group of us. I think we can just do a conversation here.
good.
Yeah. So don't worry about having to raise your hand.
I think I think we're trying to nail down a few, like three topic areas. So we are all in agreement that like a public education that addresses the myths or the misconceptions about homelessness and who these people are and humanize them rather than the dehumanization that perhaps we could be involved in crafting some of that message and bringing it to the city. In mind, Michael, your expertise in talking with people and knowing what will trigger or not trigger, go through us, go through you.
Yeah, it was an experience more than anything. It's just, you know,
Yeah.
you have to have enough of this stuff to happen to you, and you go, okay, that didn't work. And what does work, and then
Yeah.
try to find out what people are willing to accept. So, there are a lot of times I'll have 2 hour conversation with somebody, which most reasonable people will not, and I don't blame you, but I need the 2 hours to I call it sucking the oxygen out of the fire. So, okay, now we can talk, so.
Yeah. It's very true. Okay, so I just had an idea here. What if because again, my brain thinks in threes. What if we were to do a three kind of part, however we figure it out? One about myths and misperceptions around homelessness. One that is about what works. So actual, both evidence-based, the community building, those kinds of things, and what is Tucson doing? Which is kind of that support of HCD, the Star Village. We can talk and relate that back to both the myths and the what we know works. So it's kind of so we're supporting the work that's being done locally. We're also talking about it broader in general, innovation, what's happening in other communities, and then what are some of the myths?
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I noticed that Kenny had unmuted, and I really want to hear what Kenny had to say. And
Oh, so I'm sorry. Sorry. Just yell over me, Kenny. I'll talk forever. My husband will tell you.
No, this is great. I think we're heading in, the a good direction. And just to say, I appreciate. I'd be interested in the podcast. And it kind of made me think too, like, yeah, even like reading discussions or something like that too. I mean, like, here's a set of resources or things to listen to. And even just the way that you're describing how you're tackling some of those topics, it just feels much more grounded. And just having that perspective in mind, how do we relate this to people in ways that are connect with their experience and are easier to understand.
Great. And I love the idea of sort of a resource, I don't know, a resource bank, if you will.
Hey, Neto, nobody has time for this. Nobody does. But it would be great if we could have a housing podcast.
If we could get
Oh,
somebody to
Right.
pay for it,
Yeah.
I think it would be amazing. Um,
We can ask.
well, again, we could find out if there are any foundations that are willing to do something like this, either locally or because it's not costly.
So I want to bring us back
Hmm.
to, I think we're all on board with community education as one of our three. Are there what are the other two? So pulling us back to,
My thought is that becomes kind of the encompassing overall.
okay.
That's just the way I'm thinking about it. So, because by communicating, we're advocating. So, again, back to the issue you brought forward, which I really think is an important issue, and that's that institutional ownership of rental properties and housing, which is causing costs to skyrocket. To me, that could be something within the what works, and we could highlight communities that are doing something about that. So that could be an example of other communities are prioritizing individuals, that kind of thing, which is informational, but it's also advocating for. Does that make does that make sense? So we could bring in some of those other topics within sort of the communication slash advocacy work we'd be doing.
I got distracted. I looked at Neto's link.
Oh,
Sorry. Squirrel.
I'm conscious. Oh, we're still okay. We have till 1:30, I guess, so we're still good. But I also don't want to feel like I'm monopolizing the whole conversation here. Are people feeling comfortable about kind of doing a three-step, like I say, myths, innovation, we could say, myths, innovation, and then focus on good things happening in Tucson, and also what else could Tucson be doing, sort of bringing in that innovation. And then we can look at specific topics within those pieces, like the institutional um, ownership, like population groups, etc.
And
Yeah.
I'm really interested in the link Neto shared too. Is there a little bit more like context you might be able to share, or just a description?
Well, we've been talking about narrative and what tools are available, and I often rely on the Housing Narrative Lab for ideas for and and there are other organizations similar to the Housing Lab. So that's part of the committee's process of researching. Yeah. So sharing that with you.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's some really great things. I don't think we have to recreate the wheel. I
We
think we
don't.
can steal,
Yeah. Borrow.
borrow,
Hmm.
amplify.
Amplify. Hmm.
I think that's great. If we were to, do people feel comfortable with this direction? I just want to make sure everybody feels like they're on board. I don't want to push anybody into this. Is this,
You're not.
Yeah.
We we want to do a public education. It, we, I'm on board with it, and I think everybody else is too. And And going back to getting presenters in because you are new.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that inviting, so I'm going to talk about that for a moment.
Great.
So Old Pueblo Community Services is doing a huge job here in Tucson as an agency. Is that kind of the education that you're wanting or the presentations or what is it that you feel that you're missing?
I think for me, it's, I know individual agencies are doing great work, and I'm very familiar with the type of work they're doing. Um, it's more the broader systems type work that I'd be curious about. And some of it, again, both the city and the county are doing, and then also the continuum. But I think it's really that kind of systems approach, and this is where some of the funders come in, where the university comes in, and I mentioned the DV and the homelessness one, is there anything going on where these groups are talking to each other and trying to align better? It's not so much the direct homeless services that personally, I'm very, very familiar with. I've done it for years, but it's kind of the Tucson system outside of just the city and the county is what is the big ecosystem, what's happening, or is it not? And maybe some of it's not.
Neto, would somebody from housing
Kat Davis.
be
Kat
able?
Davis. Kat Davis is the continuum of care
Mhm.
coordinator. Works with TPCH. Works with the community collaborators. So she's a person that you would want to invite to give you that overview that you're talking about right now. How the system works or not working.
We're not yet.
Right.
Mhm.
So that might be really interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Kenny.
Oh, yeah, just an agreement. And also, it'd be interesting to hear like, these organizations are have public faces. So what are some of the challenges that they face in getting buy-in or reaching folks and building that support?
Mhm. That would be really interesting to have even like a discussion and
Mhm.
bring in a few people, groups. Again, that's kind of that learning piece,
Right.
but I don't want to put the committee through it if everybody feels like
No,
they're there, but
we're in
I,
this together, Anne.
excellent.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so we have sort of a big outline, and then the idea of talking to some folks in the city just to get a sense of what's going on. Sort of what the lay of the land is right now. Again, I know U of A is doing some work, some systems work right
Mhm.
now. Um, some of our agencies are doing some good things, addressing myths. That last is kind of what's going on in Tucson. And then there's the innovation piece about what isn't happening in Tucson, but could be.
That's happening elsewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's
Mhm.
happening elsewhere that we could potentially bring into Tucson with no money, no
Mhm.
resources,
Mhm.
the reality. Um,
And you made a
Michael.
comment earlier, and it came back around. You mentioned youth, and it's not that they have not been on my radar, but I didn't really focus on youth a lot over the past few years, and it's it's come to like surprise me sometimes when I've been involved with youth who are homeless and it's just like surprising, like, oh yeah, that's right, they're out there. Um, I'd like to, I got two suggestions maybe. One is, have you had any contact yourself with youth on their own?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then the second is, are you aware of our Youth Advisory Council at TPCH?
I knew that it existed, but I
Oh,
haven't had any connection with it. I just know of it.
okay, all right.
There's some really good national things going on too around youth. And I would be really interested in connecting to some of that because some of it comes with money. Um, and so I do think that that's one of the issues in Tucson is we need to really bring more national and state money into Tucson, which is, a city that has extreme poverty, one of the top 10 cities, I think, in the country, which should attract more private dollars, foundation dollars. And I know that's something that so to somehow make connections with people who are working in this area, but bring attention to, hey, Tucson, would you fund us? I think would be really helpful too.
Yeah, because the past few months, um, I knew they were out there, but I didn't realize how hidden they are and were from me until we were running a warming center over at the Ward 3 office, and a couple of kids, youth came in, and I got some information about their situation and stuff, and why they weren't getting help, and there was fear. Um, there was apparently, once they're identified, a whole process goes into effect that they didn't want to be involved in.
Yeah.
And I got an education, a little bit. I'll say a little bit of an education.
Yeah.
There's a church, I forgot his name, Brian. It's it's a kind of evangelical church, but they are building boxcar homes for youth aging out of foster care. That's the only thing that I know of. And I see them all the time on Stone near Amphi High,
Mhm.
the bus stops. They're all kids.
Yeah.
In the Washington.
It's really, really sad. I think the stats say that 45% of foster kids will become homeless by the age of 26.
Yep.
45%. Um, all right, we've covered a lot of territory. We have about 15 minutes left. So I just want us to think about next steps. Um, in terms of, by the way, I sent the link if anybody's interested in the podcast. Um, and so any thoughts about next steps? Do we want to identify a few areas that we want to start with?
Think that the next meeting, if we could get someone from
TP,
thank you. I can't,
Cat, Cat Davis.
yeah, have her come talk with us would be our next step.
Okay, that sounds great.
And just
Kenny,
to jump, I know Kat's, I guess in the last version of this subcommittee, and with the whole commission too, she's shared what they're up to quite a few times. And if we might, yeah, kind of focus on the public education piece in the request. I'm particularly interested, they do, yeah, they had the strategic planning last year. I believe some of us were engaged with.
yeah,
Um,
I was
and
there
just
for that, yeah.
yeah, just curious, like what's the traction been like? And again, who do they think they're reaching or not reaching? What's been sort of the hurdle that if we step back from the organization itself, that, what's the big picture community-wide conversation that might be helpful?
I think that's really smart. If people are comfortable, I can reach out to Kat and just give her a sort of a synopsis of what we're discussing and really focus more on how can this committee, again, leverage, help, support, amplify what they're doing. And if we do have her come, really focus in on sort of that as opposed to sort of more broadly, if we've already sort of done that as a commission. Um, sorry, I think I'm losing my voice. I haven't talked so much. This is what retirement does to you. I don't talk as much as I used to. Um, sorry. If it would be helpful, I can sort of write up a synopsis of our discussion today. and maybe outline a few just general ideas of of areas that we might want to focus on. Send it to the committee, to our committee, and have people add or say, no, I don't think we should, whatever. This is just, again, I won't take anything personally at all. I would really like to get a sense of people say, I would really like us to dive into this issue. And then we could bring that back to the next committee meeting and kind of pare it down to what are some of the specific things we want to focus on over the next few months. Is that helpful? I'll make sure that people get to, input what they would really like to, youth. I really would like us to find out more about youth. And then that gives us a sense of, okay, who are the people we need to speak to? Maybe we need to bring somebody in. And then again, okay, what role can we play to help support the work that's being done around youth?
Or not being done.
Or not being done, exactly. And again, what are some of the myths around youth that maybe from an education perspective we can highlight? I love the idea we could do a podcast or get in touch with media and have maybe a series uh, of articles, social media, whatever it is. Used to be a lot easier when we had newspapers. I'm old.
Me too.
Um, how
The
does that sound to everybody?
And I also like the idea if we could all do like a bit of our own homework too. And the housing narrative lab piece looks really interesting, just getting familiar with what that framework is, or if we have other resources too, that might be around shaping this conversation. I was just scrolling through and, even very quickly, even the conversation, right, around housing first, which, I think is in some of those materials. That feels like it's changed really quickly. And, maybe there's, um, uh, uh, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
focus.
Hurdles to, yeah, different things that we could tie more specifically to where we're at here in Tucson, or what the context is here that we're seeing in the state.
Yeah. I love that. I think that, and I think the housing first, I mean, it's under a major attack all over the country. And they're returning to a system that was used for many, many years, um, that is very punitive in nature. And, but there are also maybe some positive things. I haven't heard of a lot, but
Until we have it. Oh, sorry. I was
all
getting
right.
political there, but
So maybe, and again, I'm not quite sure in terms of how this works, but starting kind of a resource. What I find helpful is if people are on Google, a Google Doc that where people like jot down resources. No, Mindy says no. Okay, we won't go there.
I,
Um,
I don't
we
know how to do it. I haven't taught myself how to do Google Docs. So,
How are you with Microsoft services, Mindy?
I don't have Microsoft.
No, but the city they have services from Microsoft.
I don't know.
Okay. And I was thinking, if you're uncomfortable for whatever reason using Google, Neto, we can set up maybe a folder or something, or maybe. I
Oh,
don't know.
geez.
You tell me.
I am so not technically savvy nor able to remember that there's a folder.
Oh, so you need the actual file sent to you, is what you're saying. Is that correct?
That would be good. Then I
Okay.
can print it out.
we can do an email a group. And, if people have ideas or resources they'd like to send, I think the more information we get, just understanding is going to be helpful for us.
Um,
But I'm looking at, okay, we have 10 more minutes.
just a real quick one about the kids aging out of foster care.
Mhm.
What's the percentage? 45?
45%.
Well, then we're looking at the system that the state of Arizona is paying foster homes to take kids in and not mandating that after 18 that they go to Pima College and learn a trade. They, they're aging out and not equipped to get employed is the systemic issue.
Yeah,
sort of, it just makes you so mad.
I know. I know. Lots of money in the foster care system, so it's a tough one to
Maybe we need to
change.
tell them that they'll lose their license if they don't get kids educated so they have a career when they are done with foster care. Yank their license. Hey, it's like
Yeah.
I'm getting too worked up. So
I
sorry.
know these are hard. Some of these are like major systems that um, I don't say we should give up, but I don't think we're gonna do much. But
Maybe
there are some good things happening in Tucson around foster kids, I will say. I know some of there are some really good things where they're doing um, kin care and things which are much more successful than just strangers, etc. But it would be interesting to find out more.
that would
So,
be. Should
yeah.
we invite somebody from DES that is involved with the foster care administration?
I can certainly do some research. Like I said, I've done a lot nationally. I haven't done anything locally, so I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but I certainly have a lot of national contacts to have done. Got to know Cindy Lauper through her work with homeless youth. She has a big foundation and does some really amazing work. It was kind of cool. Um, all right. I don't want to keep people just to keep people. Are people uncomfortable with this? If I write some stuff up, send out some different ideas, get your feedback, your ideas, things I've missed or things you don't think are please don't feel free to say no, I don't think that's a good idea. And we'll refine it down for our next meeting. In the meantime, I'll get in touch with Kat and just give her a sense of what our conversation was and that we want to be supportive of the work that they're doing. Are there some gap areas, information, communication that we could help with them on that? And again, we'll make sure that we continue to do that through Neto with HCD and Anne at the city.
I, I'd just like to return to the Google Docs because everybody
Mhm.
else knows how to use them. That I can find somebody to teach me how to use that because that's like mainstream now.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Mindy. I'm no great tech whiz, so if I can do it. I think it's pretty easy.
Good.
It's just having someone show it to you and using it a couple times.
Okay.
But happy to do that.
I think the Google Docs is what
Is
we should do. I
okay.
don't, I'm not trying.
Until then, until you're comfortable with it, I'll just send emails out. And then at the point where we feel comfortable, we can switch it over.
No, I think we should just go straight to
Go
Google.
straight to it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do it. All right. Anything else, folks?
Learn on YouTube.
Straight. Yes, Nathan.
And I need to make a request regarding the next scheduled meeting for this group, which is May 21. After we scheduled this, realized that the mobile home or the manufactured home task force meets at the same time. And since that group has established and has already set its schedule, would this group consider changing the May 21st meeting?
Do they meet every third Thursday of the month?
No, just this one time. They
Okay.
meet. The group meets twice every every 2 months.
Okay.
And I looked on the year calendar, and this will be the only time there'll be a conflict.
Okay, great. How do people feel? What about the week before or the week after? The 14th? Does that work? No, doesn't work. The 28th? 28th?
Yeah, that
Okay,
would work.
perfect. Can we change it then to the 28th and we'll just have to let Robert know.
Robert, okay, same time, 1:30?
Good for me. That seemed to be a good time for everybody, so
Thank you,
Okay,
Nitin.
thank you.
Is it
So
1:30 or 1?
Yeah, that's what I
it's
was going to
one.
ask. Is it well? Okay.
It's one.
I'm sorry,
Sorry, I
one
kept
o'clock.
thinking it was 1:30. I was almost going to join at 1:30 today. I'm glad I double checked.
So we're going to move to the 28th, okay?
Great.
And
All
I
right,
will have learned Google Drive by our next meeting.
Excellent. All right. Any final thoughts or comments from folks?
Gratitude to all of you. to you, Anne.
Thank you.
Great addition.
Well, I really appreciate you all. I look forward to working with you. And I think once we have sort of some more clarity, we can move forward. I think this is a great group. So thank you all. Thank you, Neto, for all your support and help.
Oh, you're welcome. It's gonna
And
be fun.
if there's nothing else, then I guess we are officially adjourned.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Anne.
you.
Thanks,
See you
everybody.
all.
Bye, everyone.
It's May
Bye-bye.
1st, full moon.
All right.
Wrong one, different party, different group. Bye.
Take care.